Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're talking about the celebration of Ostara and some simple ways that you can celebrate it for yourself. Many pagans, witches, and Wiccans will celebrate the seasonal festivals of the year. These are typically known as the Wheel of the Year, and they're a modern adaptation of pre-existing holidays and festivals. Now today we're talking about Ostara. Some people will celebrate Ostara, others will celebrate the spring equinox or the vernal equinox. Now whatever it is that you choose to celebrate and however you choose to celebrate it, you'll find that many people will have festivities at this time of year, one of the most famous being that of Easter. Now this is a time of year that's really all about new growth, new life, renewal and rebirth. And so a lot of the symbolism and the festivities around this time of year will celebrate those exact things. Now regardless of what you choose to celebrate, I hope that this time of year is a joyful one for you. And I hope that no matter how small your celebrations might be, that you'll find something in this list that you might want to incorporate into your own practices. The first thing that you can do to celebrate the Sabbat season is to do a spring clean or a spring cleanse, and this can be as simple or as complex as you like. Many of us will likely have felt in hibernation mode. It's been cold, it's been dark, we've not really wanted to do anything, and so now it's a great time to clear out the old so that we can better bring in the new. It also means that when the warm weather does arrive, we're not going to be spending as much time deep cleaning the house, and we're going to be able to spend more time outside with family and friends or simply in nature. And you can do this both with cleaning and with energetic cleansing. It can be as simple as cleaning your desk off or tidying your room, maybe going through your wardrobe and seeing the clothes that you haven't worn in over a year and deciding whether or not maybe giving it to someone who would make better use out of it would be a good option. It can also be ritualistic, so you might want to cleanse your home, cleanse yourself. I have several videos on house cleansing, both with and without smoke, that could be really useful to do at this time of year. The idea is to clear out the old, stagnant, unwanted energy and to start bringing in fresh, positive energy to help manifest growth and change within your life. Now, this doesn't have to be a highly complex cleansing ritual. It could be something as simple as opening the windows and allowing a breeze to come through your space, visualizing that cool, fresh air, clearing away all of the stagnant, stale energy and air that's within your space. We often feel inclined to keep the windows closed at this time of year, especially if we live somewhere where it's fairly cold, maybe the weather is still snowy outside, but it's a good time to get that energy cleared out even if you're just opening a few windows. Ostara is a time where spring really starts, springing into action. We start seeing the trees budding, the flowers growing, animals returning, and I for one have noticed a massive influx of spiders in my house, and that to me really does mark the start of spring. Because of that, it's a great time to get outside into nature, even if it's just a balcony, a few potted plants, your own back garden, or maybe you want to take a weekend trip out into the wilderness. Whatever you're able to do safely is better than doing nothing at all. These trips outside can be very meaningful or very simplistic. They can be done simply to experience the natural environment, to get some fresh air, to get a bit of exercise, or you can make them a spiritual experience where you start connecting with the plants, trees, and nature spirits that are around you in that area. It might be worth taking a diary to note down the things that you're seeing and experiencing. It could also be worth taking out an identification book for the plants and trees that are in your local environment. You may well find that there are many species that you wouldn't be able to identify at any other time of year, because at that point there's too much greenery for you to notice them. So pick out the buds and the flowers, the fragrances that you might be able to smell, even the bark on the trees, and see if you can identify some of the trees and plants in your natural environment that you might then want to work with and connect with. It could be a good time just to sit and be present, to feel the energy of the space around you. Perhaps do some divination, maybe some augury would be a good option at this time of year. There are many different options, but if you want to keep it incredibly simple, just go for a walk in nature. Experience the cleansing energy of the air element and the feeling of potential that is sitting just under the soil. It's a really beautiful time to get outside and really start connecting with nature. On the topic of going outside and experiencing things, it can be a great time to visit a sacred space. Now, when many people think of a sacred space, they think of something like Stonehenge. And while many pagans, Wiccans, and witches will visit Stonehenge at the spring equinox and Ostara, as well as other times of the year, this isn't somewhere that you have to visit if you don't want to. Sacred space means something very different to everyone. Some people will choose to visit a very popular ritual site like Stonehenge. Other people will go to a pagan or witches' gathering. These often happen at the sabbat, primarily the equinoxes and the solstices. But not only can you spend time with other pagans and witches, but you can also spend time in a place that you consider sacred. It doesn't matter if no one else does. This could be part of a beach that's very quiet that you conduct your rituals in. It could be a particular tree that you find great peace being around, or it could be a section of your garden that you feel the energy of the spirits present in. Regardless of how you define sacred space, going to a place that gives you the feeling of comfort, of energy, and potentially of communication with spirits or ancestors, this is a really great time to make that step out and visit these special places, even if they're only special to you. Now, I understand that not everyone is going to be able to get outside, and sometimes not everyone has access to an outside space, but now could be a good time to bring the outside in. Now, in some cases, this could be decorating for the sabbat. You might want to bring in flowers and blossoms from the outside inside to really help bring that seasonal energy into our space. And this is a really wonderful thing to do, especially if you don't have access to an outside space. You can bring it inside. Another way of doing this is to plant seeds and to begin growing your plants. Now, not every plant is going to be suitable for potting outside at this time of year, but this is a great time to start growing seeds inside, or at least repotting your seedlings into slightly bigger pots if you've already started growing them. Now, this could be for a large, expansive garden, or they could simply be plants, flowers, and herbs that you're going to be using in cooking or within your witchcraft and magical practice. Make sure that you check the kind of seeds and plants that you're getting and when they're meant to be potted. But now is a great time to start your magical herbal gardens. And with this, you can choose plants that you want to work with magically. So a few examples of plants that are really useful to work with are things such as basil and rosemary. These can both be used in cooking and also within magic. If you want something a little bit more floral, then something like lavender or chamomile are good options, both of which can be used in cooking and teas, as well as for magical practice. These plants are great to grow regardless of whether you are open about your magical practice or not, as they're really common, popular plants that are often simply used for their fragrance and their cooking properties. Now, you can also take this a step further and use your plants as a form of divination. So when you're potting a seed, you're going to want to be thinking of your question. As you plant that seed, you accept that the way that seedling grows is going to determine the answer to your question. So if that seedling grows particularly fast and it's very green and lush, then that would be a positive response. But if your seedling really struggles to grow or doesn't grow at all, then that would be a no. This is especially good if you also have control plants, these being plants that you're growing without any kind of divination attached onto them. That way you can use them as a comparison. The control plant is how that plant would grow in that environment either way, but your question plants, if they vary from the control, are going to give you a stronger sway as to whether it is a yes or a positive answer, or a no, a negative answer. So that's a really interesting way of doing it. You can also grow your plants for the purpose of being protection. So there are certain plants out there like rosemary, which I personally find to be really useful for protection and abundance. And you can have them around your space so that you can imbue that energy. So if you have a plant like this that you have planted specifically for protection, as an example, if that plant and none of the others starts to wither and fade away, even though you're treating it the same and it's in the same environment, then that could be a cue that something is going on in your space that that plant is giving you a sign of. And that way you can then cleanse yourself, cleanse your space, and you may well find that that plant starts to recover again. These are really good kind of first defense, first warning signs of when something isn't quite right in your environment. That doesn't necessarily mean a curse or malicious magic. It could be something as simple as an upset in spirits or unwanted energy that you've brought into that space. Now, when it comes to divination, you don't just have to use plants. You can also use a variety of different divination techniques. Now, some practitioners will do divination on a daily or weekly basis. I myself don't really have the time for that, so instead I will often do divination on a seasonal basis focusing on the sabbats. So I will do sabbat divination, that being a divination session on the eve of the sabbat that will then lead all the way up to the eve of the following sabbat. And it gives me an idea of the kind of things that are going to change, the kind of things that might happen within my life and within the lives of the people that I care about, so that I can have a better understanding of what might be ahead in the months to come. And this is a really good way of breaking up the year because the sabbats are typically equidistant from one another, which allows you to break up the year fairly easily into more accessible chunks. Because when it comes to divination, divination is only successful until something changes, and that change can be really minor. It can be a single decision that you make that changes the course of your life, and therefore the divination session is now voided. So if you do divination for an entire year, it's going to be far less successful than doing it for a much shorter time frame. So if, like me, you don't want to do divination for the entire year or every single day, then sabbat divination could be an option. There are many different tarot spreads and oracle spreads out there that you can search for, or you can do the kind of spread that I do, which is simply a past, present, future, or I will sometimes do a 5-card spread. So one card will represent a focal point, and then the other 4 will represent the things that are going to happen surrounding that focal point. If you would like me to do videos on tarot spreads in the future, let me know and I will see what I can do about that. So yeah, regardless of what kind of divination you use, whether it's runes, cards, whether that's oracle cards, tarot cards, playing cards, pendulums, tasseomancy, bibliomancy, whatever it is that you use, now is a great time to do some readings. Now is also a great time to be decorating your space for the sabbat. Now, as mentioned, you can bring flowers inside to really bring that external energy in, but you can also set up a sabbat altar. Now, sabbat altars are something that I use within my own practice to really help me identify with the season that we're in. Because despite outside things changing, inside things often don't feel like they're changing quite as much. So I find that I enjoy having that representation for the season inside as well as when I go outside. Now, I have a designated space for my altar, but not everyone is going to have this much space. So whether you're decorating a tiny shoebox or a small portion of a shelf or an entire room, there are some things that you might want to work with at this time of year. So the first one are colours. Now, the colours of this season are often pastels, the kind of things that we would typically see on Easter eggs. These being pastel pink, pastel blue, pastel green, hence my makeup for today. I decided I had to put those colours in this video somewhere. You also have pastel yellows, whites, creams, golds, silvers. Some people will also include black as well, but typically I will stick to the more pastel shades. You may also want to work with the energy of flowers and plants. Now, some of the most popular flowers for this are daffodils, crocuses, snowdrops, and tulips, but you can also work with a few plants and trees as well. These include alder, ash, willow, and birch. And if you already have a connection with these trees, then all the better. And then you can also add these into spell work and ritual, which I will touch on in just a moment. If you want to include crystals on your altar, you can also add in moonstone, rose quartz, and aquamarine. And then some symbolism you might want to include would be things such as eggs, hares, chicks, sheep, and these kind of things. Anything that's really returning to the earth, including solar symbols. Now, I have decorated my altar for this Sabbat, so I'll show you a really brief time-lapse of how I did mine, and hopefully it will inspire you for your own altar setup. I did briefly mention the connection between eggs, hares, and rabbits at this time of year. I'm sure many of you have heard of the Easter Bunny, and I'm sure many more of you still are slightly confused as to where the idea of rabbits laying eggs came from. And that really comes from some old legends and folk tales. Now, the name of this Sabbat, Ostara, is believed to have come from the goddess Ostara, and I really apologise if I pronounce that wrong. I've been searching for a pronunciation for ages, and that's about as close as I can get. So I'll put the name of this goddess on the screen so that it can help anyone else search up more information on her. The story goes that the goddess found an injured bird on the ground. In order to save the bird's life, she transformed it into a hare. Now able to live a long and happy life, the hare was a little bit unusual, because despite being a hare, it still laid eggs like a bird. And these eggs were then given in offering to the goddess as thanks for saving the bird's life, which I think is a really beautiful story. It's obviously been heavily adapted over the years. This is just one small fragment of the stories that are out there surrounding this goddess, but I just thought it was really beautiful to add in. I did briefly mention the idea of eggs being associated with this Sabbath season, and across the world there are many different traditions that will decorate eggs at this time of year, and pagans, Wiccans, and witches are no different. We love a good art and craft project. Now, when it comes to decorating the eggs for this season, it could be something as simple as just painting them in the colour of the Sabbath. So this could be pastel pink, or yellow, or green, or blue, or really any colour that you feel associates with this season. But you can also add a little bit of extra flair into it and use it in your magic and your rituals. Now, these decorated eggs can be placed on altars to act as a representation of the season, but they can also be used as two different varieties of symbolism. So the first is for protection. We will often see eggshells be used in a protective powder that is used in witchcraft and other magical traditions. Now, the protective properties of eggshell is really important, and so if there's something that we would like to protect in our lives, then taking a cleaned out eggshell and decorating it with symbols that represent the aspect of our lives that we would want protection in, and then keeping that egg safe for the entire year will help to protect the aspect of our life that is decorated onto that egg, especially if it's included in larger spells and rituals. Now, the other way of doing this is to use the egg as a symbol of rebirth, of creation. And so if there is a part of your life that you would like a boost in, something that you would like new growth and development in, then painting symbols and representations of that onto the eggshell is a great way of doing this. This can then be used on altars for manifestation, or you can include it into larger spellworks and rituals. If you like, you can skip decorating the eggshell entirely and simply make eggshell powder, which can then be used in your protection spells, rituals, and other magical workings. Speaking of spells and rituals, now is a great time, whether you are solitary or in a coven, to undertake spells and rituals for growth, renewal, creation, and also for protection as well. If you are solitary or if you're in a coven, you can do growing rituals, which include enchanting seeds with energy and then planting it into the soil. In a larger ritual setting, these plants become magically charged, and the action of them growing will release that energy so that your intention will manifest and grow as well. So that's a really good option. You can also do blessing rituals for this Sabbat, as well as group rituals, group divinations, and generally anything for that growth, abundant, prosperous, new energy is a great thing to do at this time of year, and I will leave some links to some different spells and blessing chants that you can do at this time of year if you would like to do some of those as well. Now, some of these blessing chants can also be included in other forms of practice for the Sabbath season, including cooking and feasts. Now, a lot of people will say a blessing before they eat food, and this covers many different religions and traditions, and Wiccans, witches, and pagans are no different. Although we might not do it every single day, a lot of us will do these kind of blessings over the food or drink that we are consuming on Sabbath celebrations or other significant events such as hand fastings. Now, there are many different things that you can cook at this time of year. A lot of them will include the seasonal fruits, vegetables, and plants that you will be able to find. If you would like a blended tradition, you can also include something like a hot cross bun in your seasonal celebrations as well. I've seen a lot of recipes for lemon and lavender bars as well, which looks absolutely amazing, but it's really going to depend on what you have access to in your local area and the kind of things that you're able to get hold of. So I, once again, will leave some recipes in the description box because I am not the best baker. I'm all right at cooking. Baking, not so much. So I'll leave some delicious treats down in the description box, and hopefully you'll be able to adapt these regardless of your dietary requirements. Now, when it comes to feasting, it doesn't have to be with an entire group of people. You can do this just for yourself. Just cooking something simple and with intention is good enough at this time of year. Something as simple as stirring intention into a chamomile tea is a great way to celebrate the festival as long as you see it as a celebration. It can be with an entire coven or simply by yourself. As long as you feel happy and comfortable with that celebration, then that's a celebration. And a lot of these things you can adapt to suit the environment that you're in. So a blessing over food can be done if you're a singular person, it can be done in your head or out loud, or you can do it with an entire group. It's super adaptable in that way. And then the last thing that you can do to celebrate the Sabbath season is to have a sing and a dance. Now, of course, everyone is going to be different. But even if you can just listen to a playlist of music that relates to the season or just music that you really enjoy, the action of enjoying it during the Sabbath season is a great way of celebrating if you can't do anything else. Now, I personally create Sabbath playlists on Spotify that I will link in the description box. If you do want to check them out, that's what I'm listening to this Sabbath season. You could, if you like, go out and listen to some live music. There are lots of bands out there within the pagan sphere that you may enjoy the music of, or you can go and see your favourite performer regardless of whether or not they're in the pagan and witchcraft sphere or not. But regardless of what you do, just enjoying what you're doing during the Sabbath season is the most important thing. Regardless of whether your celebrations are huge and involve an entire coven or multiple covens of people, whether you go out to a pagan gathering and have bonfires and live music, or whether you're celebrating yourself by just wearing a few colours of the season and listening to some music, all celebrations are valid as long as you enjoy celebrating. So I hope that you did enjoy this video. Let me know if you have any other Sabbath celebrations that you do. How do you celebrate the Sabbath? I would absolutely love to know. If you did like this video, please give it a like. It means a lot to me. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community, feel free to post a comment in the comment section. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. So with that being said, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you have a marvelous magical day and a blessed Sabbath, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!